Hello, everyone, and welcome to another horror review. Well, as promised, I'm carrying on with the Exorcist series, so we're now on to The Exorcist 3. This is set 15 years after the original movie and the events, so they've kind of tied in the story that way. First impressions, much better entry. Definitely better than the second one. The second one was a confused mess. This more coherent story, actually getting invested. We start off and we're just busy seeing folks going about their business. What they've done here is pretty much like the first one. They're giving us a chance to get to know the characters in this. Now, there are links to the first one, and it sort of gets to explain, and it's not too tenuous. So basically, if you think about this area, Georgetown, it's a close-knit community. The church is kind of central to the community, and police not. So it's I think it's near Washington or something. I think that's where it's set, but you've got more of a small town vibe, if that makes sense. So the events still having the impact 15 years later, and people being affected by it makes sense. And when they do introduce the links, it's done pretty well. So with that, it's not feeling like a crash grab. Like part two just felt like making a sequel for the sake of making a sequel and throwing mud at the wall to see what sticks. Which it really felt that and just took me out of actually enjoying it. This pretty decent actually. If this had been the second one, to be honest, if they get rid of part two, make it disappear, make this part two actually be a lot better. But we start off. We've got two characters. We've got Father Dyer and Lieutenant Kinderman. There's been a spate of murders. Well, researchers. There's been like a horrible murder of a young boy that the lieutenant was speaking to because he's part of a community outreach program, like playing sports and stuff. Nice. We had it back home. We had the REC Ramble scheme and stuff. Community projects. So I think the American police do similar sort of things. But the whole crux of this beginning is the friendship between him and Father Dyer. So they're both getting on a bit. They're both jaded with the world, if that makes sense. Dyer's always trying to, how do they put it? They're right. We've seen this. They've seen the murder taking place. They're visiting it. It's pretty gruesome. Kinderman's got flashbacks to the Gemini killer 15 years previous, as if it's a copycat of those, because the Gemini killer was caught, sentenced, and sent to electric chair. So that's basically, as far as he's concerned, done and dusted. And this popping up again after such a long time, it's kind of reawakened something. But he has, like once a year, him and Dyer meet up to go and see It's a Wonderful Life at the cinema. It's funny that the cinema shows it like that time every year, but you get this whole thing of Dyer saying, "Oh, I got to go cheer up Kinderman. He's getting depressed." And Kinderman saying the same thing. I go cheer up. So what we've got is old school stoic men who there's a deep bond, a deep friendship here, and that's what we're getting. And in their gruff way, they're expressing affection towards each other, but at the same time, maintain the stoicism. Getting, oh well, he's always in trouble, and he tells his wife and family, and obviously, Dyer's telling his colleagues, right now, no, I've got to go do pastoral care. This guy's, always gets depressed this time of year. I'm going to help him out, and then they both go watch a mid-afternoon movie, and it's nice. It's nice. Consider after the second one as well, and this is something movies I talk about missing today. This is just simple showing of a friendship. This is characterization. So straight away, we're getting an insight into the personalities involved, potential strengths, flaws, etc. And we're also getting stakes because there's a friendship here. It's deeper than you can imagine. And basically what it is Dyer is Kinderman's sounding board. So he's been on the police force a long time, completely jaded with the world. He's seen it all. It's, every form of brutality. But he's not religious. He doesn't believe. Yet it's his friendship with Dara when he sort of gets this is the sort of impression I'm getting from the friendship. When he gets to the end of his rope with it all, that's who he turns to. And I think Dara does the same sort of thing that, he steals with his spiritual and sometimes he needs some real world gruff advice. So he turns to Kinderman, and this friendship has formed over the years. It's not just it's 15, 20 years, like they've all grown up together, etc. It's that sort of neighborhood. And you get that, this is not even into the first 5 minutes of the movie. And you've got that whole impression of community spirit. The fact that despite the police, there's robberies, murders, there's all sorts of stuff going on. The events of The Exorcist shook everybody to the core because the reverberation is still going on 15 years later. Funny enough, they don't mention the events of the second one, which is strange because you look down the steps, but they don't show you the house. Remember, the house exploded and did weird flashy light stuff in part 2. So they kind of don't show you the house again, which is decent because that would have been just, if the house had rebuilt the way it was, that would have just been cheap. But they were clever. Blatty's directing this again. So he directed the first one, William Peter Blatty. So he's, I think, brought the vision back of the first one and the idea. So you're getting that idea of stakes again and, peril without being over the top with effects and graphics and all that kind of stuff. It's even the murder scenes and that, you don't see them full on. You can see hints of them. So what he's doing is he's letting your mind fill in the rest. You see a bit, but mostly it's already after the event. You don't see the event taking place, so it's not splatterpunk, it's not torture porn, it's not a slasher movie. That's not what they're focusing on. They're letting you fill in the blanks, and they're describing what the act is that the Gemini killer's done, and you're not getting to see it all, just straight out in your face. So that leaves your imagination time to fill in. But what he does focus on is the character's reaction to the events, each character's reaction. So, excuse me, you get the idea. This is not good. And all right, there's murmurings of the Gemini killer. Is it a copycat? What? Because it's done, very similar. I know the Kinderman was deeply affected by that. The Gemini killer was, serial killer. Didn't discriminate, he just there was no pattern apparently to his targets. It could be a kid, it could be a woman, man, elderly, young, didn't matter. And it shook the town, and it's funny enough, it all just happens at the same time as when the first events with Reagan take place, which is relevant later on. But yeah, we'll get this whole he's talking to Dara and he's saying, it's too similar, I don't like this. And he's deeply shaken, and it seems to me that even in front of his own family, Dara is the only one that he'll drop his guard down to. So he's always guarded. That's kind of, he's always guarded. He's always gruff, almost standoffish, bullish. But we've got to just showing the friendship here. This is the only person that actually drop his defenses to, and that's really important. We then get how does he end up starting the investigation? It says it's similar, so he goes back to the psychiatric hospital where because of the drugs and stuff, the reason they end up going to the psychiatric hospital where I think the Gemini killer was treated, or they had files, and he's trying to find out more information. God, I've missed this, but no, Dara takes sick. This investigation's going on. It's wrong up because we'll get Dara takes sick. Turns out he's got a dodgy heart or something. And this actually shakes Kinderman a bit, just all of a sudden his friend who he's been talking to, who's now ill. And next thing we know, the killer strikes again, and it's Dara that he kills. And this just sends Kinderman off the edge. And we'll see a couple of, we're talking about jaded people. I think that's kind of the theme of this. I've still got a wee bit of the science and magic, the science religion thing going on, because you've got the doctors, the psychiatrists, you've got the priests. They're kind of butting heads at each other. It's an interesting setting, the psychiatric ward, because it seems like it's a Catholic hospital, so you've got nuns going about, as well as the sisters and matrons and doctors, and yet you've got a skepticism from the medical side. So it's almost like two worlds being thrown together, having to work together for the same aim, but they're completely at odds with each other. Yeah, that'll be the word. I can nearly speak tonight. Flip's sake. I started this early as well because I'm knackered. I'm going to be calling it early night, actually. Yeah, so we've got this all going on. And then we find out there's another patient. That's what happens, and it sort of all ties together. So we find out about patient X, and this apparently happened 15 years ago. Are you starting to see the pattern forming? This person was found wandering aimlessly, no complete amnesia, no memory, and couldn't identify him. So it actually put him in a ward, and then he turned violent, and then having him in isolation. And during the course of the investigation, obviously, because the hospital gets sealed up because they believe it's Gemini killers are operating with it, because we see, but I don't know if they know, but the headless statue, one of the statues is gone, which was used on the young boy. And somebody else gets taken out, but I can't remember who it was. So I only watched this a couple of hours ago. Flip's sake, my mind's going. But it's all, it's all ramping up, and it's becoming obvious that the hospital is the epicenter. So it's because as well he's using specific drugs and giving specific dosage to the victims. So it's hinting he knows them intimately, and they're waiting what to do, and he's also got medical knowledge, because it's one of them drugs, if you give too little, it doesn't do anything. If you give too much, it's instant death. It's no messing about in between, so you have to be very exact. So it means it all converges on the hospital. The hospital itself, it's very simple. It's just stark corridors, white, heavy doors. You've got the normal ward, you've got the sort of people who are confused, and then you've got the dangerous, dangerous patients section, which is more heavily secured. But the whole thing just has an oppressive atmosphere to it. It's a perfect setting for this. And they just keep it simple. They don't overdo it with the jump scares or the music. They just let the atmosphere of the hospital, and actually they use silence quite a bit, and just the sound of shoes echoing through the corridors and the doors slamming and closing. Believe it or not, that when the nighttime settings is enough, provides an atmosphere, perfect atmosphere for horror. As once again, like a review that yesterday, sometimes less is more. So all they're doing with this is just that in the atmosphere of a hospital, which if you've ever been in a hospital late at night, it's not a God, I'm doing everything today. Excuse me. Sorry about that. God, I'm a mess today. Sorry about this. That's the joys of doing things live and not pre-recording. But yeah, if you've been in a hospital, they're not nice places to be in. I know they try to make them more pleasant, they try to give more service, but hospitals are not nice. You just always have that feeling of sickness being around you, just wanting to get out of there as quickly as possible. So when this is echoing and it's dark and quiet, and you've got the added dread of a serial killer being around, and the police are still being stationed all over the place, it still feels very isolated. But yeah, Kinderman, he goes to see this patient that wandered in, and lo and behold, it turns out to be Father Karras. And he just looks, and you're like, what the hell? Now, it was years ago since I'd seen this, and I think I jumbled the third and the second one together, so I'm glad to do this revisitation with a clear mind, because when I just watched them as, popcorn flicks, I remember hating the third one, and I remember just putting on the second one, and I remember putting on the third to watch it, and the two jumbled together, and I never revisited them again because I never enjoyed, the movies. Now I can kind of see why. Coming back to this one, taking this even as a story in its own right is a good tale, and that's a good thing. You don't necessarily need to see the first one to enjoy this movie, and that's especially for a third in the series. There's enough links to the events, but this is telling a whole story on its own, and it's very clever. So we'll see Karras, but then we'll flip, and actually a different character sits there, and this is where Brad Dourif's character, the actual Gemini killer, sits there, and Kinderman knows the Gemini killer because he arrested them. He was there when he got fried, and he thinks he's losing his mind. He now no longer has Dyer. Dyer's been taken from him, so he's completely alone. And this is where we'll have the whole, can you only battle this thing if you have faith, etc.? And this is bringing in another question, which there's no right or wrong answer. That's the thing. I like movies like this that aren't telling you what to think. You can make up your own mind of, do you need to be religious to fight an evil entity? Do you need that carrot, so to speak, of the afterlife? Or if you know something's your own moral compass, something's doing evil or doing wrong, and you've taken on the role like of a protector, you're going to do everything you can to stop it anyway without needing that. And then how far can you get with that without the spiritual help? All this stuff sort of comes along. And it's interesting because it's good to have. I miss movies when they do that. They just pose the moral quandary, and you as the audience are left to make your own interpretations, and that's entirely up to you what way you want to take it. And at the same time, what decision you make doesn't have any bearing on the story or your liking of the characters, because at the end of the day, the characters have been given enough substance that you can get behind them. So it doesn't matter what you think. That mistake, it doesn't take away your enjoyment of the movie. It's just giving you something to think about, and that's good art. Good art gives you a pause for thought, not a deep philosophy lesson, but just I never thought about it from that angle before. That's interesting. What would I do? That's cool. I like that. Don't need it all the time. It's all about measured doses, if that makes sense. So it turns out that, because there's this whole, he keeps visiting the Gemini killer, and basically what the Gemini killer wants him to do is release a statement to the press saying the Gemini killer is causing new murders and that he's back, which is an impossible, because they caught him evidence, etc. But it's all to cause fear, if that makes sense. And this is all the Gemini killer wants to do. He was never given a name, by the way. He was just called the Gemini killer. It was actually quite interesting the way they did that, but it works. And yeah, this is definitely Brad Dourif's best role. Even better than Chucky, and definitely better than that weird scientist bloke he played in Alien Resurrections, whatever the hell that was. But this is pure character acting. Because all they've got is a cell, the two of them in a cell, and they're playing mind games with each other. You need good actors to do that, and you need good characters, and you need good writing to put off that essentially a quarter of this movie is those two in a cell during the visitations, and it's just mind games. And the murders, because there's not that many murders, about three actual murders in this, and an attempted one. So it's not like a slasher flick where people are just getting knocked down every 2 minutes, and the bodies are piling up. It's not like that, because then when it does that, with this sort of movie, you lose the you lose the gravitas of the actual act taking place. And that's kind of the whole point, is that each one is a horrific act. You're meant to feel that. So if there's like 10 bodies all over the place, I forgot about the priest. The priest got killed too. So there was a priest, he was killed in the confessional. He's the first victim, and then we find out that Dyer has taken ill, and it's all starting to come together. So it turns out that Karras, when he sacrificed himself, Pazuzu left him, but Pazuzu controls spirits. So it's one of those, I wouldn't say Shocker's a terrible movie, but it's the universe again putting things in place, and it's the forces of good versus the forces of evil, and opportunistic moments. So as a Gemini killer was executed and his spirit was floating spur, and Pazuzu was expelled from the body, what he does, he put the Gemini's killer spirit into Karras's body. And then this is where we get the whole interesting science and magic and religion thing, because essentially, because Karras had his brain wiped and smashed in on a pavement after getting scrambled by a demon, Gemini killer tries to take over his body, and he can't work it because it's smashed. And this is the thing, it literally took him 15 years to learn how to rewire a brain. And we've got this whole thing of, I've got a body, but can't work it. And the master, and I was referring to Pazuzu as the master, he's essentially taking revenge by giving a serial killer extended life, carry what he wants, chaos and just horror, But the fact they brought in the science of the human body operates this way, and you can't just jump into one and start it up. Like a zombie. Zombies can be falling to bits and have nothing. It doesn't work like that with demonic possessions, apparently, in this universe. And that's brilliant, because you're actually getting the limitations of who you can possess, who you can't, what condition you need to be in, and what you have to do. So it's almost like getting a beat up car, and then you have to spend, take it all apart in the garage and put the engine back together and tune it all up again. And that's what the Gemini killer said, that I had to spend 15 years learning how to tune this bloody thing up so I could operate it. And you're like, that was cool. I like that. And it was told with a seriousness, because you would expect something like that to be, I don't know, like an Evil Dead skit or Return of the Living Dead, a joke like that. It could be taken that way, but it's not. It's done in all seriousness. And the way it comes across, you're like, yeah, that's cool. And then we're getting, like I said, the science and religion debate, and how the two either work against each other or complement each other, or one explains the other. That whole thing. And just once again, it's another question that you can ponder on and answer as you see fit. You can go to yourself, does this, because science and science and magic have been battling each other since both come into being. I think magic is anything that science can't explain. That's always been the way of humankind. Magic is just the unexplainable, and when it becomes explained and quantified, it transforms into science. It's that simple. But there's always been, because there's vested interests and power and emotion, all that kind of stuff, that it's been a battle, and it's about whose way is the right way. And that's, people never change. But films, I guess, they're, like I said, they're not trying to preach you. They're just going, well, here's something to think about. What would you do, or what do you what would your conclusion be faced with this? So it turns out the Gemini killer can reach out. So he's been given certain powers by Pazuzu, and this is why something's coming up with the killings, is that they've all got different fingerprints at the scene, so it's like different people, and confusing thing more. But what's becoming obvious is they'd released misinformation to the press about, because they wanted to, all the crazies, that must be an American thing. because it doesn't seem to happen over here, but it seems to be in America. If there's a serial killer, everyone wants to admit to it. It was me, and you're like, really? Okay, right. There you go. Go have a wee lie down there. Oh, there's Chris. Hi everyone. There's a head spinning. No, it wasn't cheesy that, but this does have one of the more iconic killing scenes in horror, and that's the hospital corridor. If you see some of the top 10 scenes, it'll always come up. Exorcist 3, and that's what I'm talking about, using the hospital itself as a character and the atmosphere and letting it just grate on your nerves. And then when something does happen, it just makes that more impactful. So do that. And we'll have this thing, like there's one of the patients, and she's one's completely catatonic, just sits, she's in her own world. And then we'll have another one who's sort of has moments of lucidity, and she's holding a radio, but it's an invisible radio, and that's the way she sort of talks to people. It's her way to communicate. And her fingerprints were found in Father Dyer's room, because all his blood was put into sample pots all laid out neatly, and surgical precision sort of thing. And then we find out one of the major tools out of the morgue has been nicked because the new one's in with a label on it. So everything was that's how everything was just pointing to the hospital as being the base of operations, which we find out is pretty much the case. But we do get this scene where one of the patients is Kinderman sort of going around music for particular ones because names are coming up, and he's getting suspicious because the sister, sister of the ward, isn't really very helpful. She's another jaded individual, and she's like, well, I didn't see anything. Basically just covered her own back, sort of speak, but also doesn't really care. And I've seen that in the health service. There's the caring professional has some of the most uncaring psychopathic people you can imagine. But there's a scene where one of the patients actually crawling across the wall because we find out obviously that the Gemini killer's been possessing them. And for a 1990 film, isn't this 1990? Yeah, 1990 has come out, right? The effects to do that look 100 times better than anything that's come out in the last 5 years. Like, no way I talk about the flippy, spinny, rolling along walls thing that I absolutely hate. This one was done right, and it actually looked good. Like, even after all this time watching this movie, it looks bloody good. And you're like, how can they not do this better today? Why are movies today looking worse than this? It makes no sense. And you get that creepiness and atmosphere doing it, and once again, it's not a gore fest, so just doing it this scuttle off somewhere. And then it starts to narrow down, and then basically the climax between Gemini and Kinderman is he's like, if you don't tell the press, and he's making it obvious that he can hear stuff outside and he knows what's going on, so Kinderman can't bluff him. So it's not like Silence of the Lambs where he's, like there's no communication outside, and Clarice can, play games. They can't with Kinderman because this guy can, see outside through his servants. And he's basically like, well, you've got a choice. You either do it or I'm coming after your family. And then he has one of the, wouldn't say, not inmates, patients, he has one of the patients escape because this isn't a criminal facility, it's a hospital. So, there's obviously somewhere more dangerous, that's why they're more secure area, but it is a hospital, it's not a prison. You just get because the police come in and because they start closing off areas and they're patrolling, you do get this sort of prison vibe to it. What's supposed to be a place of healing has now become a place of incarceration, and it's actually setting the patients off as well because one of the main doctors is cracking up because it's just causing upset on the wards. Because one of the things about these sort of institutions, from what I gather, is the patients need routine, and if you mess that routine up, that causes upset. So these police going about the place and patrolling corridors and locking doors and everything just is messing up the whole routine and the workings, and just the general atmosphere, and it's causing unrest. So you've got this tension between the hospital staff and the police, and you've got the sort of clergy sort of half being involved, but after Dyer's gone, and this is where you see, Kinnaman breaking down in front of everybody because he flips and he breaks down, and people understand how upset he is. Even people who've known him for years know this is like really important. He talks to the church as well, and there's that whole, and that's where they start filling in the blanks. That like the two priests were partially involved. They were friends with Karis. They were friends with oh god, who was it? Like one of the policemen was at the scene and stuff. You know what I mean? You've got people that are all directly linked to the exorcism. The wee boy who was killed, his mother was the one that made the discovery of the tapes. That Reagan wasn't speaking a different language, but speaking English backwards. So their son was targeted because she's the one that was involved and made that discovery. So it's all linked, and it's not cheesily done. That's the thing. This could have fallen, especially after seeing part 2. This could have been so hammy, but thankfully it wasn't. It's a tight story, and I'm glad I revisited it, to be honest, because if I just stopped after part 2, I'd just be left with a sour taste in my mouth, and I wouldn't have wanted to carry on. I'm glad I decided to do it sooner rather than later, because that second movie really annoyed me. And then we have, sort of towards the end, Paul Morning. So Kinnaman realizes that Gemini's going after his daughter. So he's raised against time, and they have this whole chase scene, and he just manages to make it in time. But at the same time, I have Father Paul Morning. Now, this is the only weak character in this, because we don't really get a backstory to him. He just gets sort of dropped in. He appeared briefly during the movie, but he didn't really have much of a role. I would say Dara would have made more sense, but obviously the impact of the death, we wouldn't have had that impact. And Kinnaman really going guns blazing if he hadn't, so that was important to see. If I had been the other priest he was speaking to, made more sense. But this Paul Morning doesn't. Even in the movie, he just pops in. You're like, "Who the hell's this?" You're just scratching your head for a minute. But anyway, it's the only weak part of the film, but it does manage, thankfully, to pick it up, because he's essentially turned up. He's going to carry out the exorcism, and that's what saves Kinnaman's daughter's life, because just as he's about to, go forward, Morning appears and he starts to carry out the exorcism. So we'll have the whole battle in the cell. Kinnaman goes back, obviously, and joins in. And essentially what they're doing is trying to get Karis to fight back too. And it was actually done really well, because this is where they use most of the special effects. And it's not just done for the sake of it. It's done impact and story-wise, and like I said, the mind battle, it's just demonstrating the mind battle, and it's showing that Pazuzu has many of these souls, that his plan is to plant them, and that's part of the possession. He's almost softening the body up to put one of his workers in and pull the strings rather than assaulting himself. So it's sort of a lord. I know he's the Lord of the Skies. That's his demon's name, but he's sort of Lord of Mischief and Chaos, and that's what he's doing. Then is the whole reason for the possessions is not just to take a soul, because that's always something that confused me. The possessions, is it just a demon trying to go into the human realm? But the demon appears to be more powerful, so why would it limit itself to a human body? All that sort of stuff. But here we're getting an actual reason why possessions happen. It's the demon is breaking down the spirit of the host body to prepare for a soul of the damned that he wants to put in there to carry out his work. And that actually makes logical sense. So it's a demon, it's essentially planting seeds to carry out its work, and then putting its own servants, giving damned souls a second chance at life again, but it must carry out its master's bidding. And that's that's quite cool. You know, it's a cool concept, a cool idea, and it makes the whole thing make sense because a lot of exorcism films don't. That's why a lot of them just fall flat, in my opinion. They just don't hit the mark. Because this, what you know, I mean, the first Exorcist movie was the pinnacle, and everything else has been sort of an attempt at a copy, and not a lot of it's been done well. So the fact that they were able to pull this back with the third one gives me hope for the other two movies I'm going to watch. But it all culminates in we get the Bottle of Wills. Paul gets beaten down essentially. Kinderman comes in, and then it looks like it's come to the end. Paul manages, like a last breath, to step up again, and then they manage to bring Karis out, who then says, "Kill me now," sort of thing, to break the connection. So essentially, he offers himself up to get taken out, so that the Gemini killer won't have a host body anymore and will return. And that's it. And then we kind of see a bit of the aftermath. You know, an interesting thing was that Dara was saying a prayer for Karis. So we've all got the connections, and then essentially we see that, you know, the end result is Karis's, you know, body's there. Paul and Kinderman are, you know, just sort of going over, and then we get like a bit of an end scene of a, you know, the aftermath, etc., and just things carrying on. But all in all, I really enjoyed this one. Definitely better than part two. Part two was horrendous. This managed to pull it back. And normally you think when it start with like sequels, this is the start of the downward spiral. But no, I think obviously they learned lessons and they wanted to make a good movie. And this one did quite well. It was only cost 11 million to make. And it made 44 million. So straight away, you know, it's you know, if you factor in advertising costs and promotional material, all that kind of stuff, this movie did well. Considering the second one, the fact that people come back out to give it a chance is fantastic. And yeah, really, really good. Enjoyed it. So I think the next one's the prequel I'm going to watch. Or no, The Exorcist Beginnings is the next one. So okay, because obviously tomorrow we've got Alien. Wednesday we've got Call of Cthulhu. Thursday we've got Fault of Horror. Friday we've got The Shiver Part 2. So a bit of a busy week. So it'll probably be the weekend before I get a chance to watch this one and review it. But yeah, looking forward to it. You know, I've actually I was getting a bit worried that I was going to be just slogging through these now. But yeah, this one's giving me a bit of hope that I'm going to enjoy the next time. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed this. Let me know if you've watched these yourself and what you think. Do you agree, disagree? Share your thoughts below. And as usual, keep up to date with the channel, do the typey clicky things, and until next time, keep it creepy, keep it horrific.